Okay, welcome. It's Tanya Inside Out of G4, Chapter 2. So this class is called The Godly Soul and Where It Comes From. Yeah, the last class, which was a few weeks ago now. Shalom, hi. Shalom Aleichem. Good to see you too.
How was your trip?
It was awesome. You look good. You had a makeover.
Thank you.
Shkoyach. So the first class was called The Animal Soul. What? Oh no, it's easy spoken. The first chapter is called The Animal Soul. Yeah. The second chapter is called The Godly Soul and Where It Comes From. These are my titles. Yeah. The third chapter is The Godly Soul and its structure. And then the fourth chapter is the
Wow.
the fourth chapter is the godly soul and what it does. Yeah. So we're talking now about the godly soul, which some people call the neshama. There's a generic term, we could just call it the neshama. The technical parlance in Tanya is the nefesh elokis. Yeah, the godly soul. So we'll be interchanging, but because in Tanya we get very kind of granular and very technical, so the nefesh elokis is really you could talk about it in 5 levels. Wow, that's an old looking book.
1747.
Wow. I thought that was an aeroplane.
It's been through the war.
We've a few wars. The nefesh elokis on one simple level breaks down into 5, let's say 5 parts. Yeah? Which is nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechid. Yeah? Shalom Yachnu. So, when we talk about the neshama, there's a chelik of the nefesh elokis is called the neshama, but we use the word neshama just as a general term to refer to everything. If we're not, we will be talking about specifics today, B'ezrat Hashem, but Kolzman, we're not talking about specifics, we're talking just on a general term. We'll use the term nefesh elokis and neshama interchangeably. Okay? This is what makes you Jewish. A non-Jew is a human being, and a Jew is a human being with a neshama. Very simple. Yeah, and what's the difference between our humanity, the humanity of a Jew and the humanity of a non-Jew, like we said, is the difference between a kosher piece of meat and a treif piece of meat. For all intents and purposes, they look, smell, and taste exactly the same. Are they different? Yeah, they're mamash. Very different. But you'd be surprised how similar they are.
So what do the Goyim have? They have no neshama?
They don't have a neshama. They have a nefesh. They have a nefesh ha-chiyunis, a nefesh ha-bahamis, a nefesh ha-sichlius. They're a human being. A human being is a tremendous midrega. A human being is tselem elokim.
So we said that the neshama has nefesh. Nefesh is part of the neshama.
The nefesh has 5. Let's say it has 5 midregas.
The Goyim have that chelik of a neshama.
No. So there's lots of different kinds of nefesh. So nefesh is a generic term for it's like an energy. It's like a lowest level energy. But the terms get mixed up, and especially when you plug this into like how the other tzaddikim speak, because a lot of different tzaddikim have got different systems using either the same terminology for different things or different terminology for the same thing. So you have to like choose your system.
Because the word nefesh itself has been used as describing neshama also.
Yes, exactly. That's why we call it nefesh elokis. It's called a nefesh elokis.
So a convert gets a new neshama?
As well?
A convert gets a new neshama?
A convert gets a neshama. Yeah. Okay. The Tanya introduces the nefesh elokis as a nefesh hashenis, the second nefesh, whereas it introduced the nefesh bahamis as nefesh achas, which is a kind of dikduk thing, but it's moedik, because nefesh achas is cardinal. Achas is cardinal, shenis is ordinal. Yeah, that means like cardinal means 1, 2, 3, ordinal means first, second, third. Yeah, it's just like a English way of referring to those different counting systems. Why? And you know where it also changes it from cardinal to ordinal? Yom Echad and Yom Sheni. It doesn't say Yom Rishon and Yom Sheni or Yom Echad and Yom Shtayim. It says Yom Echad v'Yom Sheni. Yeah, and the Ramban over there says that because creation is from the from so to speak the perspective of the Creator. Yeah, not that it's from the perspective of when it was being created. So, for example, they didn't call the First World War the First World War. They called it the Great War until there was a Second World War, because it was from the perspective. You can't call it. They couldn't call it the First World War because they weren't expecting a Second World War. So you can't. So they call it the Great War. That would be called that's like calling it the War One. Yeah, but not in relation to the other. The point is that you can. But the point is, and this is a very important point, is that our default perspective is from the Nefesh Bahamis, not from the Nefesh Elokis. If you're a normal Jew, yeah, which is basically all of us, then the way you see the world is through the fleishic eyes of the Nefesh Bahamis and not through the godly eyes of the Nefesh Elokis. Okay? Even though we have a Nefesh Elokis, we're shaykh to a Nefesh Elokis, but we see the world through physical eyes, not through godly eyes. That's
like
a very
behemoths?
important point. Sorry?
We see it like behemoths?
Like humans.
Like humans.
Like
So
humans.
Is it generally understood that our nefesh elokis, our neshama elokis, we don't? It's not like a conscious thing. It's like in makif, or that it doesn't. We don't really have such a connection to it.
If you're a normal person, yeah, I hear that.
What's the Shabbos nefesh? Second.
I don't know.
You don't know?
It's a question.
No, you always say you have a
Yeah. Shaman
Neshama Yisera.
I don't know what that means.
I thought it had to do with this.
I'm sure. I mean, it does. I just don't know. I don't know. So, so this is really an important item. This is why this is called Sefer Beinonim, because the Beinonim, unlike the Tzaddikim, we say Neshama Shenasat. Or the Tzaddikim also says we say Neshama Shenasat to be to Hoirahi. Yeah. Neshama Shenasat to be. The Neshama that you put inside me is Tahor. Or who's the me? That's our default. We have to remember that. That is like Yiddishkeit 101. You look at the world as a human being. A Jew is a Jew. Remember, neshamas aren't Jewish. There's no such thing as a Jewish neshama. Yeah, there's neshamas. A human being with a neshama is called a Jew. That's what neshamas are. It's not like you get Jewish neshamas and Goyish neshamas, and you get a neshama is a neshama. You have neshamas, you have heichalas, you have malachim, you have spheres, you have all different kinds of ruchni zachin, and one of the ruchni zachin is called a neshama. So a human being that is shaykh to a neshama is called a Jew. But you have to remember that we are primarily human. That is a very important thing to remember. The way we operate is very, very human, and the way we see the world is very, very human. And we are, so to speak, our job description is our humanity. That's what we're here for. And we have a nefesh elokis to fix that. So it's like everyone understands that we're here to lift up the world. Yeah, you have a lulav and esrog, you have tefillin, you have klaf for mezuzah and Torah, you have tzedakah, you have the thing. That's what Yidden are. You go to Asia Torah for 1 minute. We're lifting up this world. Yeah. But what is it that in every single mitzvah you do, you're elevating?
Well, what? What's the question?
What are you elevating?
What in every single mitzvah that you do? What's the subject for every single
You're
mitzvah?
stuck in the goof.
No, the neshama.
No,
So-
someone doesn't need a tikkun.
The neshama b'chlal doesn't need a tikkun. You're masach the nefesh bahamis, and that is the reason why our nefesh bahamis is klipas noiga, and the nefesh bahamis of the umas ha'olam is klipas tameus. Meaning the difference between the goyish nefesh and the Yiddish human nefesh is the difference between kosher steak and treif steak. Yeah? Can you lift up treif steak? Even if you eat a treif steak by accident and then you go and learn and daven and v'hula, yeah, he says later on, it doesn't go up. He says it doesn't go up like kosher steak does. So the reason why we have a nefesh habahamis that's from klipas noiga is because that's what we're elevating. That's the avoider of the Jew, to elevate your, whatever you want to call it, your ego, your human consciousness.
But it's not because it's from Klipus Noga that makes it elevatable. It's
Yes, it
because
is.
We have a nefesh elokis.
No, well, you need both of them to tango. You wouldn't be able to lift it up. It was klipas tameis can't be lifted up. So if we had a nefesh habahamis, we haven't spoken about these terms properly yet. If we had a nefesh habahamis that was from the totally opaque klipa, well then there's no lifting it up. Just like the avoider with a piece of treif steak is to leave it alone. So therefore, you don't have a nefesh habahamis that is lifter upable. Yeah, that is kosher. That's what kosher means. There's no mitzvah to eat kosher meat. It just means that if you do eat it, it's potentially able to be elevated. But it can also be dragged down as well if you eat it for selfish, taivadik purposes. So that's our whole job description is our humanity. That's what we're here to do. And how does the human being get elevated?
Torah.
What?
Torah? Mitzvahs?
But the Torah mitzvahs is how you elevate anything. But you can't. For example, when you have home help, yeah, you have Mexican home help. Yeah, that human being is being elevated through being mishtatef in your avoida. That is how it works. That's what it means that the goyim are meant to be our avadim, and it doesn't mean they're actually going to be there like butlers and stuff. It just means that we're going to see how all of their avoida is to allow us to be over the Shem, just exactly in the same way as the Kahanim. The Kahanim with the Mamutza and the Beis Hamikdash, they elevated up Yisrael's. They elevated up the Bnei Yisrael. Yeah, through their avoider, we would bring them the cows and we would help them out with their expenses, and we would mehabed them in all the ways we needed to. That's how the Umas Oilam are nizdabek to Rabbeinu Shalom through Am Yisrael. So as we've said many times, the Noitzrim took one yid and they said that you have to connect to God through him. They weren't that far off. Their kesher to the Rabbeinu Shalom is through Am Yisrael. They said that you can't get to the Father without the Son, yeah, and that's nearly like mamash. That's really like on the mark. Just they chose one of us as opposed to Am Yisrael Bichlal. That's why we're called the Son, and we're going to see that in a minute. Where that's one of the analogies. Okay, so to that as the takeaway from there. Our Ikka perspective, the way that we see the world is through the eyes of the Nefesh Bahamis. Meaning we are primarily humans and we have a neshama, unless you work really hard, or maybe if you were born in such a way, and then it could be that it flips round, and that's why Hillel said, when someone saw him going to the bathhouse, he said, I'm schlepping with me this goof to go to the bath. I'm doing chesed with this goof. That's how he referred to it. Meaning he was seeing the world through the eyes of the neshama, and he had a goof. Whereas by us, by normal people, is we are a goof, we are an ego, we are a human, and we have a neshama. The neshama is allowed to be Tahirahi. Okay. So famously, the Alter Rebbe refers to this soul as a chelek elikai mimal. He adds on the word mamash, yeah. But the pasuk in Eov is a chelek elikai mimal, which is kind of weird because you can't really talk about a chelek of Hashem. It's like a paradox. It's like it doesn't make any sense to talk about a chelek of something that's infinite. Yeah. But one of the most important things that it's giving over to us is that just like if you take a chelek of the ocean, you could taste the time of the entire ocean, or like a chelek of the goof. Nowadays we know that within every chelek of the goof there is the whole goof encoded. You can extrapolate to the entire goof. Yeah.
DNA.
Exactly. So that's that. That's a very important point. But what we really we need to be misboined on is that the essence of the nefesh elokis is not a nivra. It's not created. The essence of the nefesh elokis, the essence of the neshama, is not a creation. It's of creator. Now, the nefesh elokis, the neshama, is a complex structure. It's not just like how I always thought. It's just like kind of like looks like Casper the Ghost kind of thing, but like a holy one. Yeah, that's not it. Bichlal. It's a very structured entity. It doesn't have any gashmius to it. Yeah, but that doesn't gashmius doesn't structure doesn't require gashmius. Yeah, so it's an extremely structured entity. And your goof is a representation of the structure of that, and that is a representation of the structure of the spheres kedoshos, and the essence of the spheres is Hashem Himself, which is not created. So if you want to think of the nefesh elokis in a helpful way, you can look at it as it has an essence. Call that its soul. The neshama has a soul. Yeah, in fact, it even has a soul of a soul. That's the real essence of the nefesh elokis. Yeah. So the nefesh elokis has a soul. Let's just call it a soul. Yeah. The nefesh elokis has an intellect. You could call that the head. It has emotions. You can call that the body, and it has behavior. You can call that the clothes. So we were just Mugashim, the nefesh elokis, which is an issa. We're not allowed to do that. But I'm just repeating words from my Rebbe, and just it's a helpful construct to understand that the nefesh elokis has kivyochel, a soul, a head, a body, and clothes.
Well, doesn't it require our behema clothes?
It becomes enclosed within the clothes of the nefesh.
Its own clothes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes, absolutely. The clothes of the nefesh elokis become enclosed within the clothes of the nefesh bahamis that become enclosed within the body. But the nefesh elokis is a complete construct. It's a complete being. It's not just a drive. And this was one of the big chedushim of Tanya, is moving away from the idea of Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. Because Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara is just like you have a drive to do Ra and you have a drive to do Tov. But this is the way that the Tanya paints it is you have two entire personalities. There's two, like when you ask the question, what am I? That's a really complicated question. It depends on what I'm doing right now, how I'm feeling, where I'm at. You're a composite of a bunch of stuff.
But if we're not conscious, if we don't have consciousness of our nefesh elokis, so it's not really part of our personality.
Wake it up.
Well,
Until you wake it up, there's not really when it's not being actively awoken, so it's not something that
it's not
that's
what we're saying is that your default perspective is from the eyes of the ego, is from your humanity. But you can access it. I mean, the real avoider of accessing the consciousness of the nefesh elokis is shachris. Shachris. That is the avodah of shachris. And that's one of the things that's lost in our generation now, is that like everyone talks about his boidedus and the halikai of his boidedus. And I see a lot of people who are mekatzer and shachris, who borrow from shachris because of his boidedus. And that like kind of makes sense if you're understanding things without a Masorah, that his boidedus, where you feel close to Hashem and you're talking to him personally, as opposed to shachris, where you're just well then, it would make sense to steal time from shachris to invest in his boidedus. But if you understand what the real avodah of shachris is, then it would make sense to borrow time from his boidedus to invest into shachris. The ultimate investment we can make in our lives is shachris, is my to understand it. To invest real time into davening shachris in the way that we know that it should be davened, as opposed to how we generally daven shachris. That's a big segula to become to become what you're meant to be, which really is very much predicated on moving your perspective from your human perspective to the godly perspective. So in a sense, the way the Rayatz, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe described it, if I understand, is that he said that davening Shachris was like the neshama does its thing, and the nefesh Bahamis kind of sits and watches at the side. And if you're really able to, like, you know, think about it and get into the words, and the words are moiridik. It's like, if you really, the reason why we're not affected by Shachris is because we're not misboning on the words. We don't understand Perish and Midas. But if you understand Perish and Midas, listen to any Hollywood speech, yeah? Or ask the AI to write you a moving speech about anything, and it will probably bring you to tears. We're all moved by language, yeah? And the ultimate language is literally is Pazukah Zimra and Bechas Kriyashma, etc. Yeah?
Yep.
So if you put the time into it and you take the time out, and it will elevate you. It won't elevate you when you spend 12 minutes saying it. That's for sure.
I asked the friend once, you daven with Kavana, Shachris. He goes, how do I get daven with Kavana if I don't know what I'm saying? They don't teach it in school.
Yeah.
You know, the davening part.
Well, I would say to him, you have to take responsibility for your own life. It's not up to anyone else to teach you. You now need to teach yourself.
Yeah. Later on, what I'm saying, in school they say, daven with Kavana. How can some person daven with Kavana if he doesn't understand what he's saying?
You have the art scroll.
Well, now, in school.
Yeah, that's it. Right. To daven without knowing what you're saying is much crazy. To daven Hebrew like they do where I came from, yeah. To speak Hebrew, having no idea what it means, is like, that's nuts.
Right.
It would be much better to read it in English. Much better. Not even a question. I'm doing all these pa'ulas in Hebrew, yeah? Leave that. Poil your mind. How can you do that? You just go, it's like reading Chinese. Yeah, read it in English, and at least it will make quite a big difference. Right. English is anyway. So that's the avoider.
That's tricky because then you're just using your mind. You don't know if you're using your nefesh Bahamis' mind or your nefesh Bahamis' mind is on the side.
There's actually some kind of kedusha and saying holy words in a foreign language.
It's not tricky. The words themselves are impregnated with the kavanas of Chazal and the kavanas of David HaMelech and the kavanas of all the Nevi'im and all the tzaddikim and the chachamim. Yeah, and that's the meaning within the words. The meaning.
But you said that the elevation comes when the nefesh Bahamis is on the side and watches what the nefesh sichlis or the nefesh elokis is trying to connect to do. But if you're just your nefesh Bahamis and you're doing shachas because you want to get that elevation and get the geshmak, so you're just the nefesh Bahamis doing nefesh Bahamis stuff and trying to get a high.
Yeah.
So careful with just if you get the Perush Milim, you're good to go.
I hear what you're saying.
You're not.
It's not. That's not a shy thing to say in Amshir. I do understand what you're saying, but that's not a shy thing to speak about. When we daven with kavana, we're accessing the nefesh of the kis, and that will elevate the nefesh of Bahamis. If you take a time out, I can tell you this from my own personal experience. I started taking Shachris seriously about maybe 8 years ago or something, yeah, and it's a different Metzias. Does it happen immediately? No. Does it happen? Do you have Muridika experiences at every Shachris? No, not at all. But his hafchus of the mahus of who you are, I don't know of another way of that taking place. I see a lot of people learning Torah. I don't see that happening through, especially in Gemara. I don't see that happening personally. But I know that B'Poil, it happens, at least in my case, it's made a big difference by taking Shachris very seriously, investing. My thoughts are you have to put at least 25 minutes into Pazukah Dizimra. To have if you speak Hebrew, it could be maybe less, but to have, as an English-speaking person, to have a chance at having those words actually do something to you, my estimate is 25 minutes of Pazukah Dizimra, which for most people is like, what? Most people get to Shachris, as... what I'm saying is you should be in Taliesin to fill in and have said all of, if you say korbanos or at least the brachas, whatever, yeah, you should be ready to start hoidu, if you daven Sfard, ready to start hoidu, Pesukei de Zimra, 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes before the Shliach Tzibor begins. It's a kedai. When you plug into how many 10 minutes of the day you pish away down the YouTube, yeah, it's a kedai thing to do, yeah. Invest that time. Still take away a little bit of time from YouTube and from whatever other tithers you have, and invest it into Shacharis and watch your life turn around.
Are the korbanos that important?
Korbanos important, but I don't say all the korbanos.
What's that?
I don't say all of the korbanos.
Right.
I say you have to say a tamid.
Right.
Yeah, that's ikka, and you have to say brochas, obviously, and then pick and choose. Like, again, to faster mublo to faster. All of Pesukei de Zimra though is a chiyuv. There's a chiyuv to say all of Pesukei de Zimra. The halacha is, I know it's like not. I don't do this as well. If I do have to skip Pesukei de Zimra like occasionally. But the halacha is you should really make it up after davening. I mean, I don't know anybody who does that. But Pesukei de Zimra is ikka, to say all of Pesukei de Zimra. We went away from the topic. But that is the ikka avoida of being mishapeich your perspective to the perspective of the Nefesh Elokis. And don't think, by the way, it's a zero-sum game. It's not you're either Kulu Nefesh Bahamis or Kulu Nefesh Elokis. It's not like that at all. Yeah, there's a lot of grey area in the middle. A lot of like the dial doesn't just have to be one side or the other. There's a spectrum.
The question, the thing I don't understand about is it like a different operating system, right? Is it like an overhaul of like leaving? Okay, now we're doing mitzvahs or we're davening shacharis, and so we're leaving the perspective of the Nefesh Bahamis. He's standing on the side watching the Nefesh Elokis, or is it somehow they live together? This is the thing I don't understand. I never understood it. Do they live together somehow in harmony at certain times and in distance at other times? But is it a different operating system entirely?
They're codependent, or they're interdependent, we should say, but they have a different relationship. The Nefesh Elokis needs to use the Nefesh Bahamis. The Nefesh Elokis can't. So when I gave the example, and this is really what Yoachim was intimating with, is when the Nefesh Elokis can't be poil the goof, yeah? It can't even really move the lips without using the Nefesh Bahamis. The Nefesh Bahamis is the interface. The Nefesh Bahamis is like it's not physical and it's not spiritual. It's like the highest level of physicality and the lowest level of spirituality. Therefore, it makes for it's the mamutza. That means, yeah, it's the intermediary between the physicality of the goof and the kula ruchnius of the neshama. So the neshama has to use the nefesh elokis. It has to, the nefesh bahamis. The nefesh bahamis has to use the nefesh elokis has to use the nefesh bahamis. Understand? But the nefesh bahamis has no shaykhs to the nefesh elokis. So when the nefesh elokis is in control, the nefesh bahamis is a faithful servant. When the nefesh bahamis is in control, the nefesh elokis is in galus. The nefesh bahamis locks up the nefesh elokis and puts her in a.
And just because we're doing a mitzvah doesn't mean the nefesh elokis is in control.
Again, I know but let's say it does. Let's say it does. I understand what you're saying, but let's say it does. If you're doing mitzvahs for if you're doing a mitzvah lakanta, if you're doing a mitzvah to hurt someone, yeah.
Even if you're doing
no, it's not fair. Wait, go on.
Then it's
if you're doing it not l'shem shemayim.
Yeah, just doing it. Because you did it yesterday.
That's too stark to say. That's too stark to say. If a person's doing a mitzvah or learning to a lakanta, which is mamash to hurt someone else, then it was better that you got destroyed before you were born. Yeah? It'd be better that you got killed at birth. Don't do that. But to do a mitzvah for material motive, like Lios Talmud Chochem, yeah, to be a Talmud Chochem, or for Gan Eden, for reward for whatever, yeah, then that's okay. Do that. That's good.
It's okay. We're not saying it's not okay.
In a sense, it's Makadish. you can. There's two ways of arguing it. Yeah, you could even say that when you do, and this is what Rabbi Nachman says when he says this is the only way I can understand this statement of Rabbi Nachman is that the highest level is Yirsa Oynesh. He said that the highest. He said the highest level is Yirsa Oynesh. Serving Hashem mitzad Yirsa Oynesh. Which is like, if you heard the Lubavitcher Rebbe here talk about Yirsa Oynesh, it's like, yeah? But if you're serving Hashem mitzad Yirsa Oynesh, you realize what you're doing is you're being Mekadesh, the lowest drive of the Nefesh Bahamis. You hear that? That's a deep idea. The Nefesh Bahamis is scared stiff of death. That's its whole MO. Everything stems from everything you do wrong. Everything that you hate about yourself, and more importantly, if you're married, everything your wife really hates about you. Yeah, it's because of your fear of death. That's motivating everything bad that you do. What?
She might kill you.
When you get married, when you have children, and you're married, and you have to start dealing with other people's Yetzer yeah, then it's like, well, I mean, you do otherwise, but when you have to deal with it on a real intimate level, yeah, it's like the hardest thing in the world to do. And what's driving every Nefesh Bahamis is a fear of death. Let's get back on that. And that is the difference between the Nefesh Lakis and the Nefesh Bahamis.
So you're doing mitzvahs because you're afraid of death. If you're doing mitzvahs because you're afraid of death, and because I'll be saved and I'll be able to elongate my life.
Yeah.
So then where's the Nefesh Lakis got to do with it?
So we're not talking about Nefesh Lakis right now, but that is being, again, you could argue it both ways. It's there's always, you could say number one, you could say that you're being Makadesh, that insecurity of the Nefesh Bahamis. Yeah? Mitzad Sheni, you could say, well, you're just getting more selfish. Yeah. So that's why we have the Yesh Omrim. The Gemara it's complicated. How do you, I don't know, it's this and this, and everything's in grays, and But you can argue it both ways. So, but we should always be arguing B'Zchus Am Yisrael. So when we know there's a lot of you out there who are serving Hashem because of Gan Eden and because they're scared of Gehenna, yeah, then maybe when you're with them, you should be helping them elevate their perspective. But we should be dunning them B'Chavzchus.
Not supposed to what?
Of that their avoider is a good avoider. Not that you're serving Hashem because you're scared of Gehenna.
Think about their avoda.
I mean, it's like, because otherwise, when we start talking very starkly about the problem of serving Hashem,
it's just like the nefesh elokis. It's like, when I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm nefesh elokis, and when I'm doing avera, I'm.
But that's not true. Yeah, no, that's not true.
Just because I'm doing a mitzvah doesn't mean I'm nefesh.
No,
yes,
nefesh elokis is active completely for selfish reasons.
Mindfulness.
But the nefesh elokis is always there. The nefesh elokis when you're doing a mitzvah, even when you're doing it for selfish purposes, the nefesh elokis is very happy. Could he be happier? Absolutely. But he's still very happy. Okay?
That's kavod.
Huh?
Mindfulness. You have to say to yourself, I'm connecting up to my nefesh case. That's already enough to kind of...
That's called kavanas of mitzvah.
Who does that? You're saying everybody's avodah does nothing because they don't do that.
No, he's not saying that. It's okay, Yachmo, you have to relax a little bit. Okay, so now this is what gives the Jew b'chira chofshis. The fact that you're shaykh to a nefesh Bahamis and a nefesh lakis. If you've learned one thing from me in all these hours of speaking, this is the one thing that you should learn from me. Yeah, is that the fight, the struggle, our struggle is the struggle between being and not being. Free will, the nefesh Bahamis does not have free will. And the Nefesh Lakis does not have free will. The Neshama just wants the Rebbeinu Shalom. It doesn't have the ability to do something wrong. The Nefesh Bahamis wants to just serve itself. Like you said, it doesn't have any altruistic, let's just speak simply, it doesn't have an altruistic, if it's doing something for someone else, it's because of some kind of personal gain that it will get from it at some point. It can be very subtle and elevated, but it will always come down to self-preservation. Now you've got Bechira Chofshis. When you've got a personality that desires only to preserve itself, and you've got a personality that has absolutely no interest in self-preservation bichlal and wants to unite with reality, now we have free will. So free will is not what I learned when I went to other yeshivas. Free will is not choosing to delay a gratification because it will be good for you in the long run. Yeah? Don't eat the cake now and you'll look nice tomorrow. Or don't eat the cake now and you'll be healthy tomorrow. Or don't buy the cake now and you'll have money tomorrow. That's all within the Nefesh Bahamis, and that in Sifrei Chabad is called Bechira. But it's not called Bechira Chofshis. It's not free choice. That's choice. And on that level, an animal also has a madrega of choice. Anyone has a cat here, yeah? You put out the rabbit and the turkey, yeah? And he will be able to decide which one he's going to eat. He'll take a taste of that. Don't like it, I'll eat this. Yeah? Or a lion, a lion won't run after what? No, I was going to say like a big rat or something. Because a lion understands somehow that the energy that it's going to expend chasing this creature and the calories it's going to get from eating this creature don't stim. So he just lets it run away. He might leap for it and then stop. Whereas for a buffalo or a wildebeest or a zebra, he'll invest a lot of time and energy into that, yeah? So animals also have a level of bechira, but they don't have bechira chofshis. Human beings don't have bechira chofshis. Bechira chofshis only exists by Yisrael because we have this metzius of humankind and Elokus. And that's what makes us the glue between creator and creation. Bless you. That's the point of the world. The point of reality is that Hashem and His name should be one. Yeah? Which is the merging together of creation and creator. How did Hashem devise that He would do that? By making a creature that is part creator and part creation. That's called Yisrael.
Where is this derived from? Where is this derived from?
Everything I'm saying?
Yes.
From Messiah. From my Rebbe.
Okay, where does he...
You can read everything from the Tanya. But you can read whatever you want from the Tanya, just like you can read whatever you want from the Gemara. You bring me anything from the Gemara and say, well, this is how it is, and I'll type into chatbot and I'll bring you 100 Gemaras the other side that show you how it's the other way. And you can bring from Chazal from everywhere. The only thing that I know of that you can depend on.
He takes this idea of a nefesh b'hamid and a shema eloki from somewhere.
The Alter Rebbe wrote Sefer Tanya, which is this teeny weeny little book, yeah. But within the pages, within these words, are contained the Masorah that the Alter Rebbe also gave over Baal Peh to his son and to his grandson, etc. Yeah. So these words, when you understand what I'm saying, which is being recovered the Masorah from the Alter Rebbe, then you'll be able to chazah everything that I'm saying by reading the words of the Tanya. But if you hadn't heard what I'm saying right now and you read the Tanya, I don't even know if it's worth doing that. You understand? You've read Tanya before?
Yes.
You've read it from the actual text here without Perush?
I've learned it before. I also have another Tanya class I'm taking on Tuesday. But I don't know. It suddenly dawns on me that where's this? Where does it come from? I mean, it doesn't come from nowhere.
What I'm saying? I'm telling you, this is Masorah that I have from Rav Manis Friedman.
Goes back to the Tanya.
Goes
back to the Tanya.
This is that's what I'm trying to say to you. The Tanya is written. The Tanya is written in a way. The Tanya was written in a way that contains the Masorah. You understand? This is the Masorah. This is called Kabbalah. This is real Kabbalah. This is I put in. What? Oh, where's it? Look, that's what he. Where does it come from? The Zohar? The Masorah is.
There's a nefesh b'hamid and a shema eloki.
Messiah that I from how I understand it is it comes from Achia Shaloni, who was the Rebbe of the Baal Shem Tov. And Achia Shiloni heard from Moshe himself. Let me say, this will take us on a long tangent, but let me just say it like this. The way I understand it is that Torah is or. See, we understand or as in light. We understand the Torah as information. So what it is, needs to say this, it needs to say that, it needs to say this. But when you understand that the Torah is an achdus pashut, it's a simple unity, it's light, yeah. That's called. We're actually going to discuss exactly that. That's called zera. That's why it's called or zerua l'tzadik. That the point of the tzaddik is that he's mazriya into you or. That's why it's called shimush talmidei chachamim, loshen tashmish, from loshen bia, from actual physical relations. That's what you receive from your Rebbe. It's the seed is an indivisible oneness, and then it explodes. So it's holographic. All of this information, I see it in my own. Zoichet Zis is that I've done what I can. I could be completely deluded in everything that I could be saying is sheker. Yeah, I am choshesh for that. You should also be choshesh for that as well. Yeah, no, you should. You really should be. But what I'm seeing is that as you and you have to work really hard to get the Messiah for your Rebbe. Getting Messiah from your Rebbe means, and this is the magnificence of MP3, is listening to what he says again and again and again and again and again and again. I listened to tapes from Manis Friedman hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times. I would just press back and back for a week, just back and back on a 30-minute shir, back and back and back, and then reading it inside and reading it from another parish and then from another parish and listening to it again and again, but from Manis. And then what happened after many years of that, and I didn't even know about all this until much later, yeah? Until many years after that, then I would listen to other people giving shir in Tanya. For example, of Shais Tao, yeah? He uses completely different words to Rav Manis, but he's saying the same thing, yeah? And then I've heard other big Talmidei Chachomim give shir. B'chashkacha Hashem put me in a shir of, I'm not going to say the names, but a big Talmud Chacham and a tzaddik, in my opinion, Litvish Rav, a tremendous Talmud Chacham, and a big tzaddik, a Litvish Rav, and a tremendous Talmud Chacham, and a tzaddik, a Hasidish Rav, yeah, an English-speaking Hasidish Rav. And Bashkachu, I've heard Tanya from both of them, and I could hear there wasn't what I'm talking about here. There wasn't the Or Zerua L'Tzadik. There wasn't that light, that indivisible seed coming through. It was information. It's a whole different thing. You just have to take the word for that. And I don't expect you to believe me. That's just from my own experience. So what we're saying, like where you're asking where do all these ideas come from? Yeah. Well, where do you think the Zohar came from?
Came from somewhere. It came from studying the Torah Shabbat. It came from studying Mikra. It came from somewhere.
It was an expression of the awe of Torah through Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Right.
That's how it came out.
Right.
To say you're right. Say it's his chiddush, but mitzad sheni it's not a chiddush. It's like, is the tree a chiddush of the seed?
Yeah, I understand.
The tree is the expression of the seed.
Torah, right?
Yeah, I am saying about Old Torah. Exactly, absolutely. Okay, say that. Let's keep going because we're going to really talk about exactly that. That's like very mamish and on the point. So the next thing that the Rebbe says, the Rebbe gives us two analogies for the Nefesh Elokis, yeah? He gives you the analogy of the breath and the analogy of the seed. He refers to it as like God's breath and then like seed from Hashem, like seed meaning zera, yeah? So this is a big, and we've spoken about this a lot, but this is like, to get this clear is so important, yeah? Is you've got the concept of ends and means to ends. Yeah, everybody who's sat with me for a little bit knows about this, yeah? Okay, means to ends are things you do for an ulterior motive. Like, I just had a 15-hour plane ride to LA, yeah, with my boys, which is not very pleasant. Yeah, but I had to do it so I could have my holiday in LA, which was very pleasant, yeah? So the end was my holiday in LA, and the means to an end was the trip
ride.
on that was the annoying 15-hour plane ride. Yeah. So all of reality divides into ends and means to ends.
We talked about that with the melachot also.
If you've heard me speak for any minute, this exists on every level of reality. Yeah. So you don't really want means to ends. You kind of have to have means to ends. Really, what you want is ends. Okay, that's what you want. That's why it's called ends. So the Rebbe explains there's two kinds of breath. There's the breath you use when you speak, and then there's breath you use when you blow. The breath you use when you speak is called chetzonius, the outer breath. And the breath when you blow, it's just an analogy, is called the inner breath. Yeah, metoich yuso epinim yuso, from your inner dimension is when you blow. Yeah, so the pasuk says he blew the neshama into us. But when the pasukim speak about creation, he speaks about the word. He spoke creation into being. Yeah. So creation is formed from Hashem's speech, and the nefesh elokis comes from Hashem's inner breath, and that's the mosh of what we just said. What's the point of creation? What? So, how is that? Rashi gives you mamash on the first words in Bereshis, like the second Rashi, whatever. Rashi gives you the reason for creation. Bishvil Torah, Bishvil Yisrael. The purpose of creation is Yisrael doing Torah mitzvahs. So now you can't do Torah mitzvahs if there isn't a world. So Hashem had to make a world because He wanted Torah mitzvahs. So this world is a means to an end. All of creation that you see is a means to an end. What's the end? It's Torah mitzvahs. Meaning the purpose of this world is Torah mitzvahs. The reason why there are cows is because of the mitzvahs that pertain to cows. There's a bunch of mitzvahs that pertain to cows, yeah? On all different kinds of levels. The reason why there's grass, the reason why there's sky, the reason why there's sun and moon, the reason why there's time, the reason why there's human beings, the reason why there's everything in creation.
Why is there goyim and why are there goyim who try to kill us? Trying to stop us.
It's also for Torah. Everything's for Torah mitzvahs. Everything's to get Yidden to do Torah mitzvahs. That's quite easy to understand. That one. It's more difficult to understand, like seahorses.
A couple of classes ago, I think you also said a couple of shiurim. You also said something almost opposite. You said that we do Torah and mitzvah so the goyim can do their things. They can do their we mechayed the olam by doing Torah and mitzvah. So the goyim can do their things. So
I don't remember saying that.
By us doing the Torah mitzvah, we basically we not allow, but we, because it's all God, but we keep that connection with God, right? And we allow the goyim to do their thing.
Not to do. I'm not sure. Maybe you're saying like this. Is that the goyim doing their thing? They're called the umas ha'olam because they give kiyum to the world. Right. Without the world, without the goyim, there would be no world. Mm-hmm. Meaning they keep they create the world, so to speak. Yeah, that's the Sheva Mitzvahs Noach are there just to maintain. It's called Yishuv Haaretz. Without the Sheva Mitzvahs Noach, it would be anarchy, and there would be no world. Anarchy is not a world. Yeah, to have a Seidah Masudadika world. Yeah, which is shaykh to Rabbeinu Shalom, is the job of the goyim. They need to become the Sheva says no. So there's Yishuv Haaretz. Yeah, the Yidden mitzvahs are kulu gashmias kimat. Yeah, so it's we're taking from the world and we're connecting it through mitzvah back to Rabbeinu Shalom. So the whole thing sticks together. So when we say that the world is for Yisrael and Torah, so that Yisrael can do Torah, you could argue and say, well, no. the Torah and Yisrael are so that Hashem can merge with the world. Yeah, and then let's have that discussion one day, because that's a good discussion to have. It depends which perspective you're looking at it from. Yeah, who's more important, Yisrael or Umo? Yisrael Olam. Yisrael is there to be mizdabek the world to Hashem.
Right. That's how Mitzad Gashmis, the Umas Olam are keeping the world going, and Mitzad Ruchni, Mitzad Elokus, Amish.
Yes.
It's a what's the word?
Yeah.
It's a bio. It's you can't separate. You can't say.
Yeah, it's like the Elkut and Bemi.
It's like what?
It's like the Nefesh Elokit and the.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. It's exactly like that. Mamash. That is mamash writ large. Yeah. Or you could look at it as Hashem. You can look at Hashem as with Hashem. Bichlal. Okay, kaviyochu. If this goes online and people start screaming at me for saying this, whatever. This is that Hashem has. There's Hashem himself, and then there's his personality. Yeah, and then there's his body, and he doesn't have a body. And then there's his clothing. Yeah, so that's called who. There's no Ein Sof. There's no way of talking about the him himself. Then his personality is called what?
Torah.
Lashon Kabbalah. Yeah, Torah, which in Lashon Kabbalah is called Ze'ampin. Yeah, Za is his personality. That's when you the small face means you recognize him. It's small because Arech Ampin, you can't. That's too big. You can't recognize that. But you only recognize someone from their face. So the Torah is, in a sense, Hashem's personality, and then the mitzvahs are called the Ivrin Demalka, which are like his body of Yahweh, and then the actual the world itself is like his clothes. So that's the inyan of B'yomahu Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. The yichud. So you could look at it in all different kinds of ways. I like to look at it in that way. That really it's a yichud of Hashem. When you're talking about the yichud of Kudsha B'Chu Shchintei, or the world and Hashem, or the Boirei and the Bria, or you could call it all, the Ruchnis and the Gashmish, you can call it all different things. Shem and Etzem, yeah? I like to see it as Hashem becoming complete. From who he is, to his personality, to his body, to his clothing. He becomes one. That's B'Yom Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. You understand? It's the same thing we're saying over and over. Yeah. So back to the point: is that the neshama is blown into Adam, which means the neshama itself is not of creation. Now the neshama has chalakim of creation, but the essence of the neshama is of the Creator. Okay, and creation itself is Hashem's speech. So that is one analogy, and that's a very important analogy. Then there's the second analogy, which is the analogy of the seed, yeah? Where he says, the psukim he brings is, Bane B'chori Yisrael, Bane Matem Hashem Elokeichem, that you're banim, yeah? Meaning firstborn children, which is the Indian of Rashis, which is the Indian of the Tipa of the Moyach. It says that the Am Yisrael, the Nishmas Yisrael, is mushrash, is rooted in Hashem's moyach, Chochmah Elah, yeah, whatever that means. And it's like Zerah, it comes down, and according to where I understand, like modern medicine, which isn't particularly deeply, is that the pituitary gland, which is in the toichias of the moichin, in the very middle of the brain, yeah, is what actually produces the zera. Whether it actually produces it begashmias, I think the way I understand is it produces like the chemicals that cause the beitzim to actually make the zera. But conceptually, it's the same idea. Is that the neshama of the yidden comes from the very inner aspects of the mind of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And you learn loads of stuff from this. Where'd you start? One side thing is that if you look in halacha, you'll see that a man has a stronger kesher to his brother mitzad his father than his brother mitzad his mother. In Dinei Yerusha and in Yevamos and in a lot of subtle halachas, you have more of a kesher to your brother who comes from your father than your brother who only if you have a half brother, then your brother who comes from your mother. Yeah, because, and this really applies to our whole discussion about AI, about creating through AI, is that creation be'ikah comes through rotzon, not even be'ikah. Sorry, creation comes through rotzon. Yeah, and in the act of procreation, the man, by definition, mechanically, like just for LP biology, mechanics, the man has to have ratzon. And a woman, someone could be ma'anes, a woman, yeah? A woman could be forced, yeah, and still conceive. But a man can't be forced. There has to be ratzon mitzad the man, yeah? Just mitzad anatomy. That means that the ikar hashpa'ah comes from that is the ratzon, yeah, and that's the. There's lots of things you can say about that, but that's the so that's the inya of the zera. Yeah, there's the place that the zera goes into, but then there's the actual zera itself. So it doesn't sound very politically correct to say this, but the creation be'ikah goes after the male aspect, not the female aspect. Mitzad echad. You can also argue the other way as well, and it's complicated. So, but how we're understanding it right now is that the ikah comes from the ratzon of the masculine side. Yeah.
There's also the Isha Mazreas Tchila, meaning the ratzon of the Mikabel.
Yeah, the man. Yeah. Yeah, so I say it's more. There's another way of understanding it, which is a modic way of understanding it, which is that when you put a seed in the ground, yeah, and a tree grows, you're not seeing a seed grow. What you're seeing is you're seeing the ground grow through the filter of that seed. Meaning the ground could be any. The ground has within it the potential to be every tree there is. When you put a seed in, it creates like a filter. You put an apple seed in the ground, it puts a filter that stops the orange tree part of the ground, the lemon tree part of the ground, the esrog tree part of the ground, the cedar tree part of the ground, and allows just that chelik of the ground that is an apple tree to grow. So in that sense, it's also there's endless. Huh?
Grow a seed hydroponically.
That's a really good point. Then it goes to water, yeah? That's a very good thing to think about. Shkoyach. What? Yeah, but the thing is with hydroponics in the wild, it always has to go through. Hydroponics is light on water, yeah?
Well, there's nutrients in the water.
Yeah, okay, that's a good thing to think about. Okay.
There's always a substrate, and also it's not the whole thing with the pot that has a hole and it's on way connected, even if it's on the
with the ground, yeah.
50th floor or whatever.
If you want to look into it, I think it's in.
But for Shavias, it's not a problem with hydroponics. If it's grown in a certain way where the ground is covered, then you could. It's not considered.
It's considered not because
they make a chatzitza between the ground.
Okay.
That's even if it's in dirt, bro.
No, even
if it's in dirt and if it's a clay pot and it's in dirt.
No, there's no dirt at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, these are interesting questions, but the point that we're trying to bring out here is that the neshama is compared to the seed of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Yeah, from the and the seed is a tipa of the moyach. That's what your seed is. Seed is tipus moichin. Yeah, it's like your moyach, like in a sense, like it's like your moyach in liquid form being passed on. Like you know when a woman nurses, what's happening is, according to my truck driver understanding, is her fat is like liquefies into milk, and then it's able to pass from her to the baby. That's what nursing a child is the mother's giving her calories to the child. So it's the mother kind of becoming liquid in a sense, so that she can move herself to the child. That's the same inyan as zera. It's like your brain becoming liquid in a sense, however you understand it.
I think it's the action of our blood. I think milk comes from the blood. So and the nefesh is in the blood.
So either way, the way that you transfer from your chomer to the chomer of another is by that chomer becoming liquid, and that's what zera is. So it's really brain liquid. That's what zera is. It's brain liquid. Yeah, and it goes through, and then it goes into the nekeva, and then the rest is kiddur.
Adama has dam in it.
Huh?
Adama has dam in it.
Yeah.
Adam.
Very good. Yeah.
So maybe it's connected with
Also not.
100%.
Ma.
Yeah, might as well. Okay, so now the Rebbe asked this question. Yeah, I'm sure everybody is thinking of it. Is that Hashem is one? Yeah, and He's one with His Chochmah, with His Moichin. Everything's one about Hashem. Yeah. Then how can you have all of these madregas of neshamas? So first thing he compares is that he said, if all of these neshamas are coming from this one place, of this unified place in Hashem, yeah, well then how comes you've got like neshamas like Moshe Rabbeinu and Avram Avinu, and then you've got like our generation, Ikvat and Mashiach, that are much smaller neshamas, yeah? Number one. Then he says, and then in each generation, you've got like the big tzaddikim of the generation, and then you've got like us guys, yeah? So you've got other madregas. And he said within each neshama itself, you have all these different madregas, nefesh neshama, chai yechida. He doesn't say chai yechida, but you've got all these madregas. So he's like asking the question, how can so much riboy come from a yichud? That's really his question. And he asks that in like literally the
hierarchy.
Third page.
Because you need the hierarchy.
It doesn't answer the question. It doesn't address the
Yeah, but how does it happen? So he uses the moshul. How
does
can
it
you end
manifest
up?
itself?
Yeah, how can you have a reboy from a yichud? And you might think, well, that's kind of pasha, but he gives the analogy of the seed, the indivisible seed that goes into the woman, and then is given length and breadth and depth, so to speak, and develops all the way down to like fingernails, toenails, and hair. So now, when you look at the seed, like take an apple seed, yeah? You know when you peel off the black bit, the brown bit, then you've got the white, the white bit that you can like break with your nail kind of thing. It just like looks like an indivisible whole, yeah? That's, by the way, when they talk about the seed rotting in the ground and then growing, the white bit doesn't rot at all. It's the klipa of the seed that rots, and then the white bit goes forward. That's an important thing to know. But so that white seed, have you a look at it, yeah? In a sense, you could say when you're looking at that white seed, you're seeing an entire tree. There's a tree encoded in that seed, the roots and the bark and the trunk and the paris and the other seeds and the leaves and the branches, etc. Yeah? But now what the Rebbe kind of does is reverse engineers it. And he said, now think of it a different way. When you look at that tree, all you're seeing is the seed writ large. And that's basically how he answers up this idea of all the madregas and Am Yisrael. That we are one. But we've got different levels of neshamas. And I think from what I've heard, the best way of understanding what does it mean you've got a big neshama and a low neshama, we've heard this many times. And it is, well, it's kind of twofold, but it's the same idea, but it's like the way that I've understood it is like this. that the shorish of the neshama is from what we've called Chochmah Elah, which is the highest place, which is like the highest place in the Tzilus, whatever, a very high place up in the godly worlds. Yeah, it's hardly even a world, and it comes down through the Oilamas. Yeah, when it gets into Malchus the Tzilus, that's called what's a code word for Malchus the Tzilus? No, that's Vak the Tzilus. Code word for Malchus the Tzilus. Shechina. Yeah, that's the Shechina. Malchus the Tzilus is the Shechina or Rochel, yeah, or Nuk or Malchus, yeah. That is that. So that's where it kind of becomes something that's, you could maybe say, tangible. It's obviously not tangible at that point, but compared to what it was above, it's tangible. It's like, you know what the good example is the example of the sun and the nuclear radiation that gives energy to the sun. The nuclear radiation that gives energy to the sun is everywhere, all over the place, yeah? But you've got no shaykhs to that. But it kind of condenses, the way I've understood this, I could be completely wrong, but the way I've understood it, is it kind of condenses in the orb of the sun, which is still too powerful for you to look at. You can't actually have a relationship with the sun. It will overwhelm you. But then it goes through the world and the plants and whatever, and from a long distance, you know, and wearing sunglasses and stuff, you can get energy from the sun. That's like before the Shechina. The Shechina is the sun, and then how we take energy from that is like the same way how we take energy from the sun. Meaning, can you look at the sun? Like kind of, but you can't. But you can, but you can't. Or you can look at it, but you have to look away. Yeah, that's like meaning that you have relationship to the sun, but it's still too big for you. That's the Shechina. You have relationship with the Shechina, but it's still too big for you. Yeah, the way we have real relationship to the Shechina is what he's going to say now is through the tzaddikim. That's how you have real relationship to the Shechina, because it's like that.
That's the cow. That's what I was saying. It's
What?
the cow. You need the cow. You need the hierarchy in order to see the light. Without the hierarchy, then you're going to be blinded all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So the next level down from the Shechina is the tzaddikim. So this is the idea of higher souls and lower souls. Is when that zera comes down from Atzilus, it goes down through Bria and through Yetzirah and through Asiya and through to the lower place in Asiya. We just understand it's a very simple level. That the way that Raman is explaining it to me is that that neshama, as it comes down, it picks up, so to speak, like sediment from Bria, and then it picks up sediment from Yetzirah, and then sediment,
like residual stuff.
and then it picks up sediment from Asiya, and that is called a lowly. That's called a lowly soul. A lowly soul means it picked up so much kind of, I don't want to call it schmutz. Yeah, but I don't want to call it that. It picks up so much other stuff on the way down that it's become so kind of covered over. That's called a low neshama.
Is this different than the nefesh that's created through the zivuk?
No, that's where we're going to finish the shiur on that. So this ore, I want to try and get to the end here. This, we could talk about all of this stuff for so long. That this ore, this neshama that comes down, it picks up stuff on the way down, and finally, when it gets into this world, it looks like, well, it doesn't look like a neshama because it's covered in a neshama is Atzilus stick, but this neshama is covered in Asiya and Yetzirah and Bria. So what do you see? Well, you really see it the other way. Sorry. So you really see like Asiya, but you know, are you with me? So that's a lowly neshama. The neshama for tzaddik, yeah, it comes from the same place, but the way Rav Manan said it to me is it kind of skips through Bria. It's a really big tzaddik. Skips through Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, and it lands in this world at Silastik.
It's a higher soul.
What?
It's a higher soul.
Doesn't
Well,
have
it's,
the residual.
you understand the way I said it.
Yeah.
It's a higher
the
soul,
same
meaning
kind
it's
of soul.
not.
The same
it's,
soul.
It's,
There's
the
no
same
residual.
thing.
No
You
residual.
just get covered over.
Abstract.
So the experience. This is what it means by being by Talmud Chachamim and Tzaddikim. The Talmud Chacham is not going to be your father figure, not your mentor, not even your Baal Eitzah. Yeah, he's the man you learn Torah from. To say that's even Ikka is like such an understatement. Yeah, the tzaddik is who you learn Torah from, but Ikka. The experience of being by the tzaddik for your neshama is comparable to being back in Atzilus where it came from. That's what it's meant to
The Baal Tshuva somebody that sheds those layers?
One second, sorry, what? Like I said, yeah.
Is the Baal Tshuva someone that sheds the layers and becomes Atzilus?
As
Because
a-
there are
I-
tzaddikim that are Baalei Tshuva, there are tzaddikim that...
You can shed the layer for sure. You can break the layers. You could break the layer for sure. You could shed the layers. That would be being Megala your neshama. That would be.
Say like the Yeduka or the Malaj Rebbe or Chaim Kanievsky. Those are the kind of neshamas we're talking about.
If they're real tzaddikim, then yeah, I don't know who are the real tzaddikim.
But you don't know.
I don't know.
At least one of the three we know.
What?
At least one of the three.
I'm
We have
sure
an
that
idea.
I just don't. You don't. I don't know. I do know one thing. Yeah, that most people don't have even a vague definition of the word tzaddik, and they'll tell you he's a tzaddik and he's a tzaddik and he's a tzaddik. And you say, what's a tzaddik? And I say, like you sit in his face, like you know, like, it's like a light. You know, you're like learning about what tzaddikim are is a big avoider.
Doesn't do good, do bad, or think bad.
He doesn't do bad or think
That could
bad.
be a
That's a
Benoni.
Benoni. That's a Benoni. That's not a tzaddik.
No, who's neshama elokit, הכריע את הנפש הבהמית.
What?
It's a Beinoni.
That's the definition of Benoni.
Nefesh Ba'amit does not have any
No,
bad.
still has bad thoughts.
That's
Well, yeah, but he
that's a
pushes
Beinoni.
the
But he
oh, so
doesn't
on
do-
that sense, I understand what you're saying.
Tzaddik doesn't even have the thought.
He doesn't have a thought pop into his mind.
Nothing.
You're saying you're just talking on a different bechina. You're saying the same thing. So how do you ever know?
Because of the Tanya.
No, but how do you know he's a tzaddik? That's the point. It's cool. You should never be able to tell the difference between a tzaddik and a Beinoni. The behavior of a tzaddik and a Beinoni is identical.
Right.
Identical. So who the this is the inyan of his kashas to the
And you never
tzaddikim.
should think of yourself as a tzaddik.
You should what?
You have like an oath. You should never think that you're a tzaddik.
Oh, you shouldn't think of yourself as a Rasha.
I was going to say we should consider ourselves Kafa B'Rashon. We're being known.
Stop considering yourself. That's the best option. Then you can't go wrong. Take yourself out of the equation. Then everything will be great, and your wife will also like you a lot more as well. That's just a fringe benefit.
We're just a being.
Not sure about that.
What?
We're just a being.
You're not even that. We're just here to help. I'm just here to help. That's it. That's it. I'm here to help. If you can really get that in, and just I'm here to help. Yeah, you're in Gan Eden, and everybody who comes in contact with you is gonna experience the drop of Gan Eden as well.
But what about you need to help yourself too.
Okay, you can answer that. You could touch that. You want to touch that another way? Bishvil sheli nivra olam. Meaning with my shvil, with my path, I'm an intrinsic. I'm a pixel on the screen. You can judge whatever you want. Anyway, that was I think with Shlomo Carlebach said that. But back to the point here. Is that
but even you said that we have to keep the light inside, right? That's what we have to do.
we have to what?
Keep our own light lit, right? You said something on this sort. I remember. Also, a couple of
To keep your own light lit,
Yes.
yeah. But then you can say so as that you can light up the world.
בסדר, ברוך השם, it's not for, I mean,
It's like a
אם
candle.
אם אני רק לעצמי, מה אני?
Yeah, but you're but
Doesn't stop.
the most comfortable place to be, from my experience, the most comfortable place to be is to be. I'm here to help. How can I help? And to be just constantly searching for how can you add value to Hashem's organization. How can I be of a value to Hashem? And when you go to bed at night and you close your eyes and you can feel, you know what, I pulled my weight today. I added the world is a little bit brighter because of me. Baruch Hashem. And
So the stronger you are,
yeah,
the more you
yeah,
have,
yeah.
and the more you can give.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But why are you doing it? So that you can give more. Why are you sleeping? So that you can serve Hashem better, not for the pleasure of the sleeping. But that, yeah. So now it's all exactly. It's all one interdependencies. So we're trying to finish off. This is the point. So this is the inyan of the tzaddik. This is what the Rebbe brings this in the second chapter about the inyan of the tzaddikim. Yeah. So the experience of being with the tzaddik is meant to be, or is alpi panemius, is that your neshama is being reminded of what it felt like, so to speak, before it had come into embodiment. It's remembering what Atzilus is like. That's the tzaddik. And how does the tzaddik do that to you, do that for you? Is through his Torah. The Torah is like we said, the brain turns into liquid and then comes out of the Ava into the Nekeva and becomes a child. Yeah, you could say it like this as well. The brain of the tzaddik liquefies into Torah, and then it comes out of the tzaddik and into our ears, and that was it. We got a bit of the tzaddik, which means we got a bit. That's how it works. That's how the system works.
You have to understand it for that.
It's all zivug.
If you understand the Torah of the tzaddik for that Torah, or just hearing it.
I think you have to understand it. In fact, I'm pretty sure you have to understand it, and the deeper you understand it, the more it penetrates all of your.
Can you give this class another 20 times?
I give this. You'll have the opportunity to listen to it online. Chazve another 100 times.
Oh, you have it online?
It'll be online. It was what to share. So we're going to finish on a very, very important point. So we got this. This is the inyan of the tzaddik. Okay? The inyan of the tzaddik, the way I understand it, that I learned from my Rebbe in Tanya. Again, you can see from other places different things. Okay, but this is my Masorah that l'chorah you care about because you're sitting here listening to. Is that the tzaddik, the connection that you have to the tzaddik is through his Torah. And that's like a funny thing in our generation, because we see that there's the phenomena of the tzaddik who's become like a kind of mascot kind of figure, where, some of the big Hasidus is literally the Rebbe doesn't say Torah bichlal. Literally, not even Shashivas. What? Yeah, that's just bizarre. That's just weird. I don't know what that's like. That's really like again, if you have a relationship with the Rebbe and he's like your father and he's like a mentor and he's about Eitzah, and maybe he gives you food and money as well. It could be like that. Or you should probably be trying to give him, help him be mitzvah, yeah. But he could be giving you all that stuff, yeah. That isn't the relation. The real relationship of a Talmud Rebbe is the relationship of Torah, of understanding his Torah and being ma'amik and ma'ayin into his Torah. Like you were saying, there's madregas and madregas of understanding, and then and that's. So, and that really is you peeling away the klipas of Asiya and Yetzirah and Bria, and when you become elakustic or etzilistic, however you want to say it, yeah. So that's the inyan of the tzaddik, the way I understand it from Sefer Tanya, is that you're being by the tzaddik, which means not just looking at him, which means listening to his Torah and understanding his Torah, is for your neshama an experience of going back to Atzilus. And that's mamash machaya. That's machaya, your Yiddishkeit. Machaya, your Yiddishkeit. Tony Robbins, lahavdil, can be machaya, your goof. You can walk out of a 12-hour session with Tony Robbins like that, mamash, yeah? But that wasn't, that by definition, that couldn't have been the neshama. But when you sit by a tzaddik, yeah, and you hear real Torah, you hear real Torah from the tzaddik, yeah, your neshama should be like that, because it's like I'm back home. It's like that's the way we connect to the way the children connect to the parents. Al-Pi Kabbalah is through the firstborn child. The firstborn son really is like a mamutza between the other children and the parents.
Say that again?
the firstborn child, the oldest brother, is like there's halachas of standing up for the bechor.
Like the middleman.
Yeah, he's like the middleman. He's the go-between between the other children. I mean, it doesn't work out in the Maisa, but not in my family anyway. But the bechor, what?
It's usually the second kid.
Yeah. You're the second kid? Yeah.
Anyway, so whatever it is, but the Inyan Alpi Halacha is that the Bechor is what's Mechaber the other children to the parents, and that's the Inyan of Am Yisrael and the world and Hashem, and it's the Inyan of the Tzaddikim and Am Yisrael and Hashem. Yeah, it's all the same thing, just writ large. It's the micro, it's the macro. It's all the same thing. Yeah. So we'll finish on this, which is really, really the most important thing, I think. Although we said a lot of important stuff. It's a big chapter. Okay, so this is the levushim of the nefesh. If anyone needs to go, you can go. No offense will be taken, but this is really an important idea. Okay, there's a statement in the Zohar that the quality of the neshama, it sounds like, goes after the quality of the relationship between the parents when they're being intimate. Yeah, the kedusha of which the parents are misnaig with each other when the child is conceived, that is poil. It sounds like that makes a difference between the size of the neshama. Yeah,
the man.
Wait. You mean no? Yeah.
Also at the time of the zibur, machshava, yes.
That's what it means. The kedusha, meaning how are you into it for yourself or your? Yes. So okay. Wait. So that's what it means, because the actual act of relations is always the same. Right. So it's where are you holding internally? Yeah. So this is what it means kedusha, the way I understand it by inyane snias. Being with your wife by kedusha means that you follow the halachas, yeah, which means lights off, and I'm not going to get into the details, but read kitzur.
Holding the sheet, right?
Yeah, so you have to follow halacha. Yeah, that's for sure. And then the real kedusha is that you're in it for her. That's your main kavanah, is her, and not in some kind of egotistical way that you're giving yourself chizuk, but that she's actually the ikka. Yeah, and then her machshava should be the same, and that's cool. And then there's also the kavanahs of bringing down the neshamas and avodas Hashem and etc. There's that as well. But the ikka kavanah, which is what you were basically saying before, the selfishness, is that it shouldn't be with selfishness. Yeah, that it shouldn't be with taiva is almost impossible, but that it shouldn't be with selfishness. Yeah, she should be the first thing on your mind, not you. Okay, so now the Alter Rebbe says that is not that what we're talking about just now, meaning how selfish are you, does not determine the actual size of the neshama and the level of the neshama. It determines the levushe neshama, but it doesn't call it levushe neshama. It calls it the levush of the neshama. Now we know that there's 3 levushim. Yeah, this is really, really important. We know there's 3 levushim. Yeah, what are the 3 levushim? Machshava dibur ma'aser. Levushim is behavior. Yeah, how the soul behaves, how it goes out. Yeah, but the Rebbe here says that this kedusha by the act of bia, yeah, is poil the levush of the neshama, not the levushim of the neshama. The levush. Single levush. So this is what I learned from Rabbanis, and I saw it in the Tzemach Tzedek as well. That, and I heard it from Rav Yochanan as well, is that levush is the levush of machshava.
Does this make sense, because it's about the machshava then?
So listen to this. All your problems, yeah, in the world. Well, think about. So everyone can think of a Nebuch guy, you know, someone who's like mamash. Everything he does goes wrong. He's always in trouble. It's a big balagan. Everyone knows someone like that. Yeah. You realise that the problem is how he thinks. I know someone who, when you talk to him, after like a few minutes, you're exhausted. You're just exhausted. It's like trying to hold a fish. You know what I'm talking about? And you're like I don't understand. I've said this to 1,000 people. It's taken me 20 seconds. We're half an hour in and I haven't even begun. What's wrong with you? You know what I'm talking about, yeah? That happens a lot. We meet people like that, yeah?
If you don't know someone like that, it's you.
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to say it. You said it.
That was very funny.
Oh, that was good. That was good, Joel.
Yeah. If everyone's like they're so like quick and like things aren't so simple, you know. Yeah, but that's this idea. This is such a trip. Is you if you speak to like who is it? I saw the interview yesterday, yeah, with Will Smith. Yeah,
You're watching Will Smith.
Will Smith. I saw this interview on him with Will Smith on YouTube with this guy.
You love these Hollywood stars.
What?
You love these Hollywood stars.
It's interesting.
He just went to LA. What do you expect?
Anyway,
There we go.
so I just
Oh,
I bumped
went
into
to
it. I
LA
didn't
because
have
he
to
went to
finish.
LA.
Yeah? I listened to him speak. Yeah, he's a brilliant man. Yeah, he made hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, and he became like a star of whatever. Yeah, he's not a pasha guy.
Osher is about Hashem also.
He's what?
Okay,
Osher is about Hashem.
Let's finish
Same.
tomorrow.
But the way Hashem gives it to you is, you could win the lottery, but there's a lot of times people earn it because they've got good. Listen to the guy speak. Yeah, he's mamash. He spoke. What he said was, this is a side point. He spoke about when you hit rock bottom. He said there's another side. There's rock bottom, and I think he called it cliff's top or something. Cliff's peak, the peak of the cliff.
Plateauing.
So I can't remember the Lush he used. It was a nice way of saying it. He says the same thing. Hitting rock bottom and hitting the top of the mountain is the same thing. He says when you get to the top of it, and he could say this, yeah? He said you get to the top of the mountain, yeah? There's no one left with that you want to have relations with, yeah? There's no more money than you want. There's nothing more to buy. Yeah, he said it's mamash an abyss. He said it's even worse than hitting rock bottom. When you hit the mamash top and you're like,
It's
what?
lonely on the top.
Not that it's lonely on top. In that it's like that's another thing. But it's like, what now? You hear Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey said this a couple of times. And you hear there's a famous video of him when he got the second Grammy or second award.
That's great. That's a great.
And it's a really important speech to hear. He hit that highest pinnacle, and he's like, oy vey, nothing left.
He's making fun of him.
So yeah, he's making fun of himself, exactly. Yeah. So to finish, this is the point, to finish on this, is that the quality of the intimacy when we bring down the neshama is poil, the child's ability to think. That's an unbelievable thing to know.
So can the child do a tikkun?
Yes, exactly. So the child, yes, is much harder, but the child, the whole, and that is what what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says, I've written down. It says, Abayim. I brought it from Gemara in Soita. Yeah, I have it written down. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Abayim yom koidem yitziras avlad. Bas kol yitzes v'omeres. Bas ploini leploini. Base ploini leploini. Sadei ploini leploini. Listen to what we just said. Is that unbelievable? What's 40 days before Yitziras Avlad? That's Shas Maisa. Yitziras Avlad happens 40 days after Shas Maisa. So 40 days before Yitziras Avlad, a bus calls out the shidduch, the house and the field. Meaning that's what your thinking causes. Who you're going to marry, what car you're going to drive, what business you're going to have. Everything about your external world is predicated on your levusha machshava. So you hear that? That's determined by the kedusha, by what we're with our wives. B'shas. So when does chinuch begin?
40 days before.
Chinuch begins on mikveh night. Leil Tevila, that's when chinuch begins. In fact, that's the ikka. If you want to save yourself tsar gidul banim, then that's the ikka. That's the ikka chinuch is mikveh night
for the woman.
That's the point. Is our kedusha is the kedusha of the levush of the child is the levush of machshava, which the other levushim are mishtalshel from, is predicated be'ikah on the kedusha by Rosh with Aaron. So the Rebbe says, No, the Zohar is not talking about the size or the kedusha of the neshama. It's talking about the levush of the neshama. That is predicated on the kedusha by which the parents are with each other when the child is formed, and that is Bezrat Hashem Sheni of the Holy Sefer Tanya.
I was thinking because I thought I learned.